What up, fam? It's been an interesting week. You want to come for a walk with me? Drex here from Drex Factor Poi, sharing with you the love of poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain. And today it is time for another one of those illustrious vlogs where we do a walk and talk. Shall we? It is getting to be dark outside, and I want to get in just a little bit of flow before the dark sets in for sure. So come along with me as I go take a look at that. But before we dive in, I do just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Flow DNA, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Juggling Calling, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spinballs, and Ultrapoi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all these amazing companies and the work that they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links that I've got down in the description of this video. And a special thanks to the first non-business friend of the channel, Johnny Howard. Thanks so much for your support, Johnny. So real talk. I kind of hate this time of year. Like, whenever fall hits and we get into winter and everything, the days get short, the weather gets colder, and these are both trends that I am not a fan of. You know what I am a fan of, though? They literally just this past week installed a brand new crosswalk in my neighborhood so that we can get from my apartment building into the park across the street without darting across traffic to do so. You know you're getting up there in years when you get excited about a crosswalk, am I right? So this is one of those videos in which basically, I wound up with a gap in my production schedule where I have stuff that I am working on that takes a little bit more effort than usual, as well as, some topics I've been wanting to pursue, but that I just didn't have a completed script for. So, also, to be real with y'all, one of the other reasons I do not like it when we get into fall and winter is that I can feel my seasonal depression coming on. And it really blows when that happens because essentially I wind up in a place where I feel like nothing I'm producing is very good and I'm not terribly passionate about any of it, but I try and keep the trains rolling nonetheless, right? And sometimes it's hard for me to draw a line between those moments when I do need to put another bit of thought into the content that I'm producing versus those moments when it's just like, no, it's just your brain is not functioning the way it should. There's nothing wrong with what you're producing. Just gotta keep rolling no matter what your brain tells you is going on, right? And it hasn't really helped that in the past few months, there have been more than a few really large projects that I've committed myself to that, while they have turned out in ways that I'm really proud of, have also been really exhausting and really time-consuming. It's one of those things that I very frequently wind up in a position where, unfortunately, I'm devoting so much time to like editing or setting up videos or what have you, that kind of the whole point of this to begin with, of like getting out and flowing and everything and getting to connect with my brain and my body creatively, doesn't really wind up happening, which is really disappointing because I remember years ago when I was making sets of contact poi and selling them on my website, I reached a point where it became clear to me that if I was going to keep on doing that, that I was going to have to hire help to do it, that I was going to have to really commit to it as a business, that I was going to have to invest a lot more time and energy and effort into it. And I didn't want to. Like, every single person I've ever known that started a prop making company basically stopped spinning themselves because at a certain point, the amount of time and energy and effort that it takes to run a small company gets to a point where you really lose the capacity to do that frequently. And I didn't want that to happen to myself. The irony being, of course, that it turns out that there's a plateau in content creation that likewise means that you spend all your time working on videos and you wind up with not a whole lot of time to spin yourself. So I've been trying more and more these past few weeks to really make sure that I'm getting out and flowing and like making that a priority rather than thinking, okay, that's my reward for getting my work done for the day, because more often than not, I am finding, well, quite frankly, there's always going to be work for me to get done. So saying I get to flow when the work is done means that I never get to flow. There's also kind of been a broader question that I've been dealing with too. As some of you may have noticed, I have been producing vlogs on a variety of topics in the flow arts world that, shall we say, are a little bit more controversial than stuff that I have talked about in most of the time that my YouTube channel has been up. There's a lot of reasons for this, but a big part of it, honestly, is that I feel like we're long overdue for a lot of these conversations, and also, too, that I know I have a lot of eyeballs that watch my videos, and if I don't put things like this in front of my viewers' eyeballs, who else will? Who else is going to have those conversations? It's also meant that in the past couple years, I have unfortunately learned a lot of things about the flow arts community that have made me very sad, and that, quite frankly, have made me a little bit leery of engaging with the wider flow arts community in a lot of ways. I was already at a point where I had kind of more or less retired from the festival scene because, spoilers, once you get up into your late 30s and 40s, sleeping in a tent most weekends of the year just starts to lose its appeal. Be on the lookout for that, many of you out there. But I was trying to stay really engaged in online conversations and make sure that I was staying in touch with, a few meat space friends and everything. And Lord, I tell you, in the past year, it's been getting harder and harder to even do that, because sometimes it just seems like the voices that are resisting any kind of change or growth are so loud and so aggressive, and it just makes me wonder sometimes if, that's really all there is out there, whether, the flow arts community turns out not to be the kind of engine for change that I hoped it was, but a bunch of people that are trying really hard to avoid that. So I thought I would give myself a little bit of a challenge in this video and ask myself, rather than, what are the problems that I see out there, instead to ask myself, well, what keeps you coming back? What keeps the flow arts in my life, and what makes it something that I still think is essential, even when I'm frustrated as hell with the community? Because clearly, if I'm putting in the time and energy and effort to get in regular flow, and that's a priority for me, there has to be a reason for that, right? So what do those reasons look like? So first and foremost, I have to say that, not only as a kid who grew up who was incredibly bookish and not really into sports or anything, I really appreciate that the flow arts have helped me inhabit my body. In a very, very broad kind of way, especially growing up as a cishet man, there's only a few ways culturally that we kind of make it okay for boys and men to explore the capabilities of their bodies and really get to inhabit them. And none of them are creative. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of creative potential within a lot of sports and martial arts out there. But at the same time, creativity is not really the point of it. The point of it is something else, and you can find creative ways of interpreting it. Whereas flow arts, doing something creative is really the point. Creating something beautiful is really the point. It's not to get a ball upfield in the flashiest way possible, or even to, do a kick that'll break a board or what have you. It is getting an object on a string to move around in a specific geometric pattern that I think looks beautiful. This is one of the things that I think I'm most grateful to the flow arts for giving me, is a way to inhabit my body, because, as a very, very physically awkward kid growing up, I don't think I really felt like my body was a part of me until I got into my 30s and learned how to spin like this. It's been one of the greatest discoveries I've had with it, and one that I think even to this day I'm probably the most grateful for. Now, this next one may sound like it's basically the same thing, but it's really not. And it's the capacity to do artistic and creative things through flow arts. So for example, this past weekend, I went and shot my sponsored flow videos for both Ultrapoi and Flow Toys over at the Kennedy Center. And you know what? Both of them look beautiful, just beautiful. And to me, there is something about adding something to the world that just makes it a slightly more beautiful place that I really appreciate. I appreciate creating art. I appreciate creating something for the sheer sake of it's beautiful. and it's going to brighten somebody's day. And I get a lot of opportunities to do that through flow arts, which I appreciate about them. And you know, it's also got to be said, as much as I'm complaining about the weather getting colder, it's good for me to get outside. It's good for me to get in some fresh air. It's good for me to get in some sunlight, at least on the days when it's not overcast. It's just good for my body and brain in general to get outdoors. And even though I have a great space indoors to flow in, I still prefer to do it outside. And you know, spinning poi helps me get there. And as many of you who have watched my recent videos on 1.5s will know, there's also the element of flow arts wherein, well, it's kind of a puzzle to be solved. And I like solving puzzles, especially when it comes to things like, you know, figuring out how to pace a poi dance piece, or figuring out what all the different variations are on 1.5s depending upon which axis you reflect the movement of the poi over and everything. I'm all about that. And poi is one of those puzzles that is always going to offer up something new. Now, normally when I talk to people about what I appreciate about the flow arts, I also talk about the community. And granted, I am kind of feeling a little down about the community currently, but I think it's also a good exercise to remind myself that there are reasons why I flow that have nothing to do with other people. And that's important, and it's a healthy exercise to engage in, I think. And speaking of flow, I'm finally arriving at the place that I really like to get my flow on. So I'm going to go ahead and share a little bit of that with all of you. Awesome. Well, that felt good. I'm glad I got that out. Thank you all for watching and listening to me ramble here. Please, if you got anything out of this video, make sure to like, leave a comment, share, and subscribe, both to help other people find my videos and to help the channel grow. And a huge thank you, because this video would not be possible without the kind support of these amazing people right here. These are my Flow patrons over on Patreon, and they, along with the wonderful people listed down in the description, help to make this video and all the videos on my channel possible. If you would like to sign up to support me in my mission of bringing poi spinning and flow arts to the wider world and helping people connect with their brains and their bodies, you can do so by heading on over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and signing up. You can do that either by clicking on the card that just popped up on YouTube, or by clicking on the link down in the description. There you can get early access to all of my content, as well as a say in what topics I tackle in the future, plus some great extras and behind the scenes content too. So go and check that out, please and thank you. How are you all handling the fall? Do y'all get seasonal depression like I do? Yeah, what are your thoughts these days? Let me know, leave me a comment. I'll go ahead and leave a link to some other vlogs that I've done down in the comments as well, and up on screen if you happen to be watching this video on YouTube. Take care of yourselves, please. A little self-care is going to be in order for me tonight for sure. And I will go ahead and see you on Wednesday with a brand new Flow video. Yay! Yeah, have a good one. I'll see you soon. And please take care. Thanks. Peace.